At the age of 16, I took my first proper job working at a pizza restaurant in Gibraltar where my sister was the assistant manager. As you would expect, my basic duties involved making pizzas and some cleaning duties. Unfortunately, I grew up in a household where my mother had pretty much banned me from the kitchen whilst she was in there, and the only time I can remember making a meal during my school years was as part of home economic lessons. Nor can I say that as a child or teenager I had given any real attention to effective cleaning, and for this reason, when I took on a role that required both cooking and cleaning, my ineptitude quickly became apparent to all. I was laid off after just 2 weeks, and rightly so, as I was entirely ill-equipped, inexperienced, and unprepared for that work. Thankfully for them, this was not the case for the 12 disciples in the passage that we will explore today from Luke's Gospel. These 12 apprentices of Jesus, most of which were probably still teenagers at this point, had now been with Jesus for almost 2 years. They had spent time with Jesus, seen a lot of his ministry of teaching and healing, words and works. They had been taught and trained, and although no doubt feeling somewhat out of their depth, they would soon be sent out to continue his mission to the world. In his book, A Leader's Heart, author and leadership expert Dr. John C. Maxwell outlines what he sees as the most effective method for training and development. The most common learning model in the United States is when a leader asks questions or lectures while the follower listens and tries to comprehend the instructor's ideas. But craftsmen use a different model for developing others. They take apprentices who work alongside them until they master their craft and are able to pass it along to others. Their model looks something like this. I do it, and you watch. You do it, and I watch. You do it. As well as this being relevant to the world of work, this model of training and development appears close to the way that Jesus did things. Perhaps influenced by learning from his earthly father figure in his carpentry days, it seems Jesus had taken this approach, and the 12 that he had chosen from amongst his disciples had now reached the stage where they were able to go and do it without direct oversight. When Jesus had called the 12 together, he gave them power and authority to drive out all demons and to cure diseases, and he sent them out to proclaim the kingdom of God and to heal the sick. He told them, "Take nothing for the journey, no staff, no bag, no bread, no money, no extra shirt. Whatever house you enter, stay there until you leave that town. If people do not welcome you, leave their town and shake the dust off your feet as a testimony against them." So they set out and went from village to village, proclaiming the good news and healing people everywhere. Luke chapter 9, verses 1 to 6. It is my belief that Jesus is still training, equipping, and handing out missions to individuals, churches, and groups. If that be so, I think there are several things that we could draw from Luke's account here. Number one, Jesus gave them permission for the mission. I do not believe that I can do anything I want. I do not believe that I can do everything I want. However, I do believe that I can do anything and everything that Jesus wants me to do. And if he is asking me to go out on his behalf and do a job, then I can do it with confidence. In the above account, Jesus does not give this unusual mission and this unusual level of power to all his followers or disciples, but only to these 12. Later in Luke's Gospel, he recruits another 60 to this kind of work, and we see a further example of this kind of commissioning at the end of the Gospels and at the beginning of the book of Acts. I see a sense of commissioning as crucial to living out the life God has for us with faith and confidence. Doing stuff off my own back, things may or may not work out. But I believe that if I am doing the things that Jesus wants me to do and the way he wants me to do it, then within those parameters, I can expect his blessing and success. Do you sense that there is something Jesus is commissioning you to do? Number 2, Jesus gave them partners for the mission. One of the first things that Jesus did when he started his mission was to create the team of apprentices that he would work with. In the above account, Jesus sends out these apprentices to represent him in pairs. At the beginning of the book of Acts, we read about Peter and John doing ministry together. The Apostle Paul was always with a Luke or a Timothy or Barnabas or a Silas or a Mark. It saddens me, therefore, that ministry has become, or seemed to become, more about the Lone Ranger than it has the Magnificent Seven. In our context, my hope is that church is and will continue to be more so about effective teams working to common goals. I am always interested by the question, what does God want me to do? But I am equally interested by the question of who does God want me to do that with? Number 3, Jesus gave them provision for the mission. According to Luke's account, they were told to take nothing for the journey, no staff, no bag, no bread, no money, no extra shirt. According to Mark's account, they could take a staff for walking with them. But either way you look at it, the instructions were to travel light and trust that God will provide as you go. Despite the many miracles they had seen by this point, I have no doubt that this was to be a further test of their trust and confidence in Jesus as they headed out into the unknown territory in this way, relying solely on the goodness of God and the goodness and hospitality of those that would host them. It has been said that where God guides, he provides. Where he leads, he meets needs. I believe this. I believe that if we have that sense of being led by Jesus, commissioned and instructed by Jesus, we can also go into our unknown, confident that one way or another we will be sorted out. God pays for the work he orders. I also believe that if there is something that Jesus wants us to do, he will almost certainly put us through apprenticeships of his own devising before we are ever fully handed the task. I do not necessarily believe that just because Jesus asked some of his followers to do something at some point in time, he automatically asks all of his followers to do that for all time. In fact, I see thinking this way as leading to dangers and disappointments. But whatever he does call us to do, we can accomplish.